All right. So it's my name's Christopher Pridham, and today is July 22nd, 2020. And I was just going to put up a few thoughts as far as on the election, up and coming election, and I'm wanting to approach this from an astrological viewpoint, or at least some of the things I see in the astrology of the time and what's going on. All right. So what I did was I did three things. I pulled up the actual chart for November 30th, or November 3, I should say, 2020. Then I also did a chart on Trump, and I did a chart on Biden. So I want to take a look at their natal charts, and then also take a look at the transits that are happening, different things going on with both of these men as we approach the election. So that's what this is going to be. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. Thoughts on the up and coming election. So November 3, 2020, we have Sun is opposite Uranus at the time. And in a Sun opposition Uranus, it's really about breakthroughs, awakenings, more autonomy. So the Sun is the sense of self, almost like the soul is what that would be. And then Uranus is about individuation. It's about a certain spontaneity. It represents, again, this uniqueness, individuality. So when you have the Sun in an opposition to Uranus, it has the sense of the self wanting to be unique, special, and individual. All right. So this is a very individualistic kind of energy, is what that is. Next, you have the Moon square Neptune. And the Moon square Neptune on that day, this is about sort of escaping into imagination, is what that could be. You have, again, the Moon, and the Moon's going to represent sort of the emotional state, the mind, sort of how a person sort of not intellectually thinks, but sort of just thinks with a combination of their emotions, with their thoughts, with what's surrounding them. So it's kind of that mind. And when it's in a square relationship, it's almost like a combative relationship with a dream or a vision or imagination, sort of the view to what things could be. So you have a sense of your emotional state, of the reality of what is, sort of fighting with what could be. All right. And so that's why there can be an escaping into imaginations, is what there can be. I mean, there can be qualities that come out that are very visionary, but there can also be just delusion. So you kind of have both those poles that can happen. Next, we have Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn all in this, coming into this conjunction. And this is really a massive evolutionary force, and sort of a survival kind of mode going on. Pluto is the planet of evolution. I mean, that's what it does. It has this sort of push for change and to move forward. And Jupiter being the expansion, Saturn being the restriction. So you have this interplay between this expansion and restriction, which really just forces this change, is what it does. But not in a sort of in a just consistent push way, is the dynamic of that. All right. So another thing we have is the Sun on that day will be 11 degrees, 44 minutes Scorpio. And so you look at the Sabian symbols, and this is something that was developed by Dane Rudhyar. And actually there's a different symbol for every degree. So the 360 degrees, there's a symbol for each of them. And the symbol for, again, 11 degrees, 44 minutes Scorpio is a drowning man being rescued. And the concept that he gives there is the deep concern of the social group for the safety of individuals. So the deep concern of in a sense, the society for the individual. That's something that's really strong on that particular day, which I thought that was kind of interesting. Again, These are all individual aspects that are happening on that day. Now, on that day, the strongest harmonic is the 26th. So the strongest harmonics is 26. And 26 is what's called a 13 base. And a 13 is very American. Okay, America is kind of the 13th harmonic. And what it deals with is it takes what is and wants to step and improve it, wants to go beyond what is or what we accept as a norm. And so it's always about improving is what it's about. And in this harmonic, you have a Mars, Saturn, and Neptune, and a Mars, Neptune, Pluto. 2 3-planet patterns that are strong in this 26th harmonic, which is really about the resolve to act for the greater good. And it's also a passionate approach to a vision of life. All right. So it's this idea of seeing how the group can really, what are the possibilities? What could be? How can we advance this? How can we move forward? How can we make it better and take a step in the whole evolution? So these are some of the stronger dynamics of November 3rd, 2020. All right. Then we look at Trump. So Trump, he has this Uranus square Pluto. Now he has it. This is kind of a lead up to that. He has this Uranus square Pluto from May, begins in May. So he's in this right now, and it goes all the way through October. And this is about sweeping away all the worn out structures that you've built up in your life. Because what it is it's Uranus, that unique individuality. Okay, so it's your that which individuates you, that which pushes you forward in life is what it does. Okay, that's Uranus. It's an advancement. And when it's square Pluto, it's in this kind of battle with evolution, is what it is. So it's that your individual uniqueness is in a battle with evolution. And it's about really wiping away the old structures that you've kind of built your life on. And it's a total revolution in your life. And it really lays out a pathway for a rebirth really to a whole new life. So this is a really strong transit. It's a very disruptive transit because it's sort of, it puts you into like the ways that you've done things won't work anymore. So it sort of forces you to find a new way. And he's right. Well, so he's right in the smack dab middle of this thing, which is kind of interesting to see. So you have that dynamic that he has going on. He also has a Pluto quincunx Sun. This was amazing. And this is July to December. All right. So he has a Pluto quincunx Sun, which this is about realigning the self in a sense to the higher will or to the divine. This is about going to the higher ideals of yourself. It's again another really strong evolutionary push. He's got 2 of these going on right now about really changing, and not just in little ways, but in really foundational ways, which I found quite, again, interesting. He also has this Neptune square the moon, and he'll do that from June to August. It'll be in a square relationship. And what that does is that can lead to trusting your hunches a little too much, and trusting people. And then also having some kind of misunderstandings within the family you can have. Because what it is the moon, again, being that sense of emotional, that's the tie, that's the family, that's the home. And it's in a square relationship with Neptune, which, again, Neptune it can be the vision or the dream, but it also can be very delusional. Neptune isn't really based in facts. It's more of possibilities. So when the sense of the mind or the intuition is connected with that square dynamic to the sense of the dream or, imagination, your thoughts can be a little off. And it's just something that needs to be aware of. It just throws a little bit of a haziness to that instinct is what it does. Now, it can open up to some good things, but it can also open up to just disillusion and making wrong decisions. So that's another thing that's going on for him. Now, on the election day, Trump has a Saturn opposite Venus, which typically is about a crisis in personal relationship. Okay, that's the negative for that. The positive is about true love, having real love. But it is a restrictive it's a restrictive quality to that energy. Another one he has is Jupiter in opposition to Saturn. So this is both restricting and expanding at the same time. It's sort of a let go and hold on. It's opposites. Saturn, or Jupiter, I should say, is the expansion, with Saturn being a restriction. Okay, so you have expanding and restriction in opposition. So sort of both at the same time, which again, that can really sort of focus you in the moment, but there's a tension there. All right, so there's definitely a tension on that day. He has Pluto trine the midheaven, and this really gives a desire for increased power and status, because what you have going on is, again, the evolutionary push of Pluto, and then you have the midheaven, which is sort of our status in the world, our reputation in the world. It can be our career, but it's what you kind of, what people see, what you stand for. And so again, with Pluto there, it's an evolutionary push. There can be a desire for more power and more status, but it can also create this dynamic of the ability to overcome, the ability to push forward, and the ability to change, my sort of overall reputation, as it were. It can create a really good, sort of resourcefulness there. Now, his progressed sun on that day is going to be in 4 degrees Virgo. And so the Sabian symbol for that is black and white children play together happily. That's the image. And it's the idea of overcoming sociological prejudices. All right, which again, you just can't make this stuff up. It's crazy. But that's where his sun is. That's where his soul, his sense of being is in the idea of a harmony and overcoming prejudices that are within society. Very interesting. So that was Trump. Biden, he has a Neptune in opposition to the midheaven. Okay, so Trump had a Pluto square. Biden has a Neptune in opposition, which tends to create a certain chaos, and it can be very confusing. All right, confusing to the home life, but because again, it's that element of the dream and the vision, and also just the imagination. And when it's connected right to your sort of reputation, to that midheaven there, it can create a bit of chaos because it's not something solid. All right. He also has Uranus conjunct the part of fortune. And what that does is, again, that gives a certain individuality to the expression for his life, where he's going to find happiness, where he's going to find joy. It makes that, that he as an individual really wants that then. Then he has Sun conjunct Mars, and this gives a strong force. This gives a vitality because it puts a real oomph in your step, is what that does. Now, he also has just leading up to the election here, he has a Sun opposite Jupiter from September to October. All right. So during these 2 months, this is basically the opportunities for growth or expansion end up being limited. And it's really a time of cutting back because, again, you have that Jupiter, which is your expansion, in an opposition to Saturn, which is restriction. You really have the same kind of thing with both Trump and Biden. Each have these Saturn-Jupiter oppositions, all right, where I think Trump has it on the election day, where Biden has it a month before. Okay, so again, there's a limiting of growth. There's this sort of restricting and expanding all at the same time. So that's a dynamic that he has there. Another one, what I should say, this one, that Jupiter is the transiting planet for Trump over his Saturn. So it's kind of expanding that one a little bit more, where Biden has Saturn in an opposite, it's what is aspecting his Jupiter. So overall, the Saturn is going to suppress it a little bit more, that expansive, where with Trump, his suppression is Saturn, his restriction is opened a little bit more. Okay, so although they have the same kind of dynamics, it's coming at it from a different way. All right, so it would be a little more positive, I would say, for Trump than it would be for Biden. All right, so on in November 3rd, the Sabian symbol for Biden is his sun is 16 degrees Aquarius during that time. And this is the image is a big businessman at his desk. Okay. So, and it's the ability to organize the many aspects of an enterprise involved in a large group of human beings. All right. So that's what's happening there during his during the election time. So these were some of the, again, major aspects going on sort of during this year and actually at the time of the election. So what does that mean? Well, ultimately we'll find out what it means. But how I would sort of interplay with this is it's really an interesting thing. Looking at Biden's chart, to tell you the truth, it's kind of boring. He's got kind of a boring chart. I mean, this is a nice guy. You can see that. He's got Sun, Venus in the 12th house. And what that does is, you know how Biden likes to like put his hand on the little girls or little kids and everything and do that. Well, so his sense of his attraction to beauty, okay, which is Sun, Venus, is in the 12th house, borderless. Okay, so it's sort of, he doesn't know the proper lines of how that's looking. People want to make it more than it is. Oh, that's him, that dirty old man or something. That doesn't seem to wash in the in his chart. That's really not what that would be. Could he do things that would be considered inappropriate? Yeah. But he's doing it because he just doesn't have a sense of bordering on that. He kind of just, he sees something and he reacts to it, So I don't look at it as a real negative for him. I mean, in his position, it can be. But being a 12th house sun, I don't know how you're ever going to lead. I mean, your sense of self, your sense of direction in that way, that can be kind of difficult because you sort of are, in some ways, you kind of almost don't know yourself. And everything I look at in his chart would tend to indicate he wouldn't actually be the leader. He would be sort of the front guy leading first. Somebody else would be calling the shots. That's what it appears. Okay. So, again, that's how I would read that. Where Trump is the interesting one because he is going through this whole evolving. Now, that does not mean he's going to evolve. All right. It means that the opportunity for evolving is there. So he'll be going through all the situations, but we still do have a free will as to how we respond to the energy. The idea that we go through it, no, that's a given. You're going to go. He's going to go through that. That's what the astrology would show. It shows sort of the dynamics you go through, but what you do with it and how you respond to it, well, that's up to you. And so, I almost compare Trump could have what I call a Saul of Tarsus to Paul the Apostle road to Damascus experience. He has the potential to really, and if you know anything about the Saul of Tarsus story, he was persecuting the church, killing a lot of the early Christians, okay, that were following this new cult, all right? and he was getting them, pulling them out, having them killed. I mean, that was what Saul did. And then on the road to Damascus, he has this conversion experience where he meets Christ and gets thrown from his horse and whatnot, and goes kind of blind. And then eventually that's all healed, and he goes away for about 15 years, and then comes out as Paul and begins to go out and preach, and most of the vast majority of the New Testament is written by him. He really is the one who establishes much of what we know today as Christianity. So Trump, not saying he's a Paul of Tarsus, but he has a chance to have an experience that really could flip him fast. Okay. To where he can really become a much more sort of progressive, open, and really dynamic leader. He has a chance to do that. Whether he will or not, I don't know. But the last election, I mean, for me, it was pretty easy to see Trump was going to win. This one is really, to tell you the truth, it's quite confusing looking at it. I mean, if I had to guess, it definitely looks like Trump most likely would win in some ways, but Biden might end up being the president. There could be some real challenges here, where, there's some people with some real like utopian type views of things that would not let go. And Trump may have to, even though win the election would be sort of called in question, and for the good of the country, he might have to like concede. Possibly. I don't know. I say these, that's why I wanted to kind of read through some of the stuff with you and just put it out there that, and if anybody else has any insights, I'd love to hear it. But these are kind of some of the things that I'm looking at and seeing that, it's really interesting. I mean, we're in such an amazing time right now in the country, with the Pluto cycle being in Capricorn, and really the last time it was here was the birth of our country. That's really big. And then, what is it? Beginning of 2022 is when we are actually at the exact same degree it was when the Declaration of Independence was signed. So, I mean, we're at such a massive stage, and this year is so big with the Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto conjunction coming in November and December. So we have so much happening as far as change and real structural change. I mean, that's going to take place. I could even see this election as possibly the last time we have just a Republican Democratic ticket. I think there's a very strong possibility that things get much more split up, and we even see like 4 parties or 6 parties come out next election, because there's far more into this Aquarian age and the whole Uranus and individuating that America's always been about, that we need to take further steps in what it means to be an individual. And right now, there's a lot of, confusion as to how you do that. We have the Black Lives Matters things running now, and looking at police brutality. But then they're taking it, a lot of things are even going further. Again, when you envision stuff, and during a visioning time, which is people will go to extremes. That's the way it happens. And then you're going to get more of a pullback, So Jupiter wants to expand. So it expands everything. Let's go borderless. Let's go paying everybody. Let's go this. It's very expansive in that way. But Saturn comes into play, and it wants to make it real. It sort of tends to restrict, and we need to define things. So we need to have borders. We need to have, okay, what is the line? Where do we go to? And it brings order and structure. All right. So we have the interplay of these things going on right now. You see with Jupiter and Pluto being really strong together, it's taking that expansive kind of pull, but it's going to swing to Saturn too. And you're going to see that restriction sort of, and that sort of desire to define things come into play more and more. But I thought I'd throw that out. These are some of my astrological thoughts on the up and coming election. Maybe when we get closer, I might do some more of this, and just, you kind of have to, you can see the dynamics, but how they play out. I mean, that's what an astrologer does. You can see the individual pieces, but how are they going to all fit together? That's always the challenge of astrology, is you can see the dynamics, but how do they all interplay? And so that's why I'm just out there talking. So I hope you enjoy your day, and be safe, and know that, no matter what, things are going to work out. Life has an amazing way of doing that. So be good and enjoy life. Bye.